Have you ever felt like the people you once relied on are slowly drifting away? You're not imagining it. When you reach your 80s, a kind of solitude settles in that's deeper than just being physically alone. It's the kind that lingers in the quiet spaces of your home, where there used to be chatter, laughter, and activity. Maybe your children live far away, or perhaps your partner has passed. Maybe the phone calls don't come as often as they used to. This video isn't about pretending it's easy. It's about showing you that you're not helpless, and definitely not forgotten. If you're waking up every day wondering how to fill your time, how to stay strong, and how to feel truly alive again, this video is for you. We're going to talk through 5 practical, soul-soothing ways to not only survive, but thrive during this stage of life. You may be alone, but you're not lost. These are lessons from older people who've been where you are now and made it through with grace and resilience. So stay with me, because the last step we'll talk about might just change how you think about growing older alone, and you won't want to miss it. Number 1. A daily anchor. When you live alone after 80, days can start to blur together. There's no one knocking on your door in the morning, no meetings to rush to, no kids to drop off at school, and no dinner to prepare for a full house. To someone younger, that kind of freedom might sound great, but when every day starts to feel the same, it can feel like nothing really matters. That's the danger, not being alone but feeling adrift. The first step to surviving and thriving in solitude is having what I call a daily anchor. This is one small, steady thing you do at the same time every day. It might be walking to your mailbox with a cup of your favorite coffee, feeding the birds at sunrise, or writing a page in your journal after breakfast. It doesn't have to be anything big or complicated. It just has to be something personal to you. Why does something so simple make such a big difference? Because structure gives meaning. When your life lacks people to answer to, or appointments to keep, your mind can easily fall into the trap of asking, why bother? But when you create your own rhythm, even with just one small action, you're telling yourself, this matters, I matter. That sense of purpose, no matter how small, is what keeps the heart alive. I once knew a man named Carl. He was 84, widowed, and had no children. After his wife passed, he spent 6 months feeling like a ghost in his own home. Then one morning, he decided to sit on his porch at 6:30 every day with a cup of chamomile tea. Rain or shine, he did it. At first, it was just for him. But then, the neighbors started waving. A dog would run up the driveway, and the paperboy began leaving the paper closer to his door. Over time, Carl went from feeling invisible to becoming a quiet part of his neighborhood's morning routine, all because of one small habit. That's the power of a daily anchor. It gives you something to wake up for, something steady to hold on to when the world feels uncertain. You don't need to impress anyone or follow anyone else's schedule. You just need that one ritual that reminds you that you're still here and your presence still matters. If today feels like every other day, tomorrow is your chance to change that. Choose something, make it yours, and don't let anyone tell you it's too small to matter. Number 2, reaching out regularly. One of the biggest myths about aging is that we stop needing connection. But the truth is, the older we get, the more our hearts crave it, even if our days are quieter. When you're over 80 and living alone, it's easy to believe that nobody needs you anymore. But that belief is not just untrue, it's dangerous. The moment you start thinking you're no longer important, loneliness starts to feel permanent. The second way to survive, and not just survive but live, is to reach out regularly, even if it's just to one person. Whether it's a weekly phone call, a handwritten letter, or a simple message on a birthday card, staying in contact with others gives your life continuity. It reminds you that you're still part of the larger human story, and that your voice still carries weight. Now, you might be thinking, what if they don't respond? What if they're too busy? And yes, sometimes they are. But reaching out isn't just about the response. It's about keeping your side of the bridge open. You may not control who crosses, but you control whether it stays standing. Let me tell you about a woman named Joyce. She's 82, lives alone, and has arthritis in both hands. Her biggest fear wasn't falling or losing her memory, it was being forgotten. So, she made it a habit to write one card each week to someone in her life, even if they hadn't spoken in years. Some cards went unanswered, but many didn't. Slowly, her mailbox started filling, not with bills or ads, but with handwritten notes, photographs, and even cookies at Christmas. The most powerful part? It wasn't just about receiving love, it was about giving it. Reaching out helped Joyce feel useful again. She became a thread in other people's lives, and they became part of hers. Even if you don't feel like talking, just hearing another human voice, even for a few minutes, can lift your spirit more than any pill or vitamin ever could. And in a time when technology makes it easier than ever to stay connected, there's no reason not to pick up the phone or send a message. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs and inspires you. Now, let's move on to the next point. Number 3, establishing simple routine. When every day feels the same, it's easy to lose your sense of purpose. That's one of the quiet dangers of living alone in your later years. Without a clear structure, time can slip by unnoticed, and with it, your motivation, energy, and even your health. That's why creating and sticking to simple, meaningful routines is one of the most powerful ways to survive and thrive after 80. Now, I'm not talking about packing your day with a younger person's schedule. I'm talking about establishing a steady rhythm, one you can rely on every morning and evening, something that keeps your mind sharp and your body moving. It could be something as simple as having a cup of tea at the same time every morning, walking to the mailbox after lunch, or writing in a journal before bed. These routines give your day structure and meaning. These small habits help reduce decision fatigue. You don't waste energy wondering what to do next. Instead, your day unfolds gently, guided by the habits you've shaped for yourself. This predictability creates a sense of control, and when you're living alone, control over your time becomes a form of emotional security. Think of James, an 84-year-old man I met at a small-town diner. He wasn't wealthy, and he wasn't particularly social. But every day he woke up at 7, made his oatmeal, read his newspaper, took a walk, and made one phone call. That was it. But he told me that those little habits kept him grounded. "They're my fence posts," he said. "They keep the wind from blowing me away, and there's science behind it too." Routines help regulate sleep, appetite, and mental clarity. They create stability in a world that often feels uncertain. When unexpected events come, like an illness or bad news, you've already built a structure to support you through the storm. But perhaps most importantly, routines remind you that you still have a life worth organizing. They reassure you that you're still the author of your own day. It's not about being busy, it's about being intentional. When you choose how to spend your time, you remind yourself that your time still matters. So, take a moment to think about small rituals you can incorporate into your mornings, afternoons, and evenings, not for anyone else, but for you. Because even when no one else is around, a good routine is like a quiet friend who shows up on time each day just to say, "You're still here, let's make this day count." Number 4, staying connected through small interactions. Loneliness after 80 doesn't always come from being alone. It often comes from feeling invisible. The good news is, you don't need big social events or a full calendar to stay connected. Some of the most powerful ways to feel human again come from small, simple interactions that are easy to overlook. Saying good morning to your mail carrier, asking the cashier at the grocery store how their day is going, or calling a neighbor just to check in. These small gestures may seem minor, but they hold a quiet magic. They remind you, and others, that you're still part of this world, still someone worth noticing, still someone with warmth and kindness to share. When you live alone, it's easy to fall into isolation. You might think, "Nobody's calling me, so why should I bother?" But here's the thing. Connection isn't always about waiting to be called. It's about reaching out, even in the smallest ways. When you initiate, you're not only brightening someone else's day, but you're keeping your own heart alive. I once knew a woman named Virginia, 86 years old, who lived alone after her husband passed. She wasn't the type to seek out attention, but she made it her mission to smile at everyone she passed during her morning walk. You'd be surprised at how many people stopped to smile back, wave, or share a kind word. Over time, she became a familiar face in the neighborhood, not because she threw parties, but because she made people feel noticed, and in return, that made her feel noticed too. There's something powerful about those brief, genuine interactions. They recharge the spirit and remind you that you're not forgotten. Even a simple hello can carry weight, and when you build enough of those small moments, you create a quiet network of human warmth that supports you every day. So if you're alone, don't wait for the world to come to you. Wave at the person walking their dog, compliment someone's sweater, join a group at the local library or senior center, even if it's just for an hour, or simply pick up the phone and say, "I just wanted to hear a voice today." These aren't distractions, they're lifelines. And as we age, it's important to remember, you don't stop belonging just because life slows down. You still matter, your voice still matters. And when you offer it with kindness, the world often responds in ways you didn't expect. Number 5, finding purpose in daily rituals when everyone leaves, and you're left in a house that once echoed with voices but now sits silent. The hardest part isn't the quiet, it's waking up and not knowing why you should. At 80% or beyond, life slows down. The roles we once played, spouse, parent, employee, may no longer define our days. That's why it's so important to create new meaning, not from grand adventures, but from small, steady rituals that anchor your life with purpose. Purpose doesn't have to be complicated. It could be something as simple as feeding the birds each morning, caring for a potted plant, journaling your memories, or writing birthday cards to your grandchildren. These aren't chores, they're daily reminders that you still count. When your hands are busy with something meaningful, your heart stays open to hope. There's a quiet dignity in looking after the small details of your life. Making your bed each morning isn't just about tidying up, it's a sign that you're still showing up for yourself. Preparing your meals with care isn't just about eating right, it's about having respect for yourself. Taking a walk at the same time each day isn't just exercise, it's a promise to yourself that your life still deserves attention and rhythm. I once met a man named Harold, 83, who lived alone after his wife passed. He told me that the first few months were incredibly hard, but then he started planting tomatoes on his windowsill, not because he was passionate about gardening, but because it gave him a reason to open his curtains each day. Watching those tiny green shoots grow reminded him that something beautiful could still start. Even now, those tomatoes are his anchor and his pride. Purpose doesn't have to look the way it did when you were younger. It just needs to feel meaningful to you. You can find it in making things with your hands, in reading, in sharing your thoughts with others, in volunteering, or simply by keeping your body moving. What matters is not what you do, but that you do something that gets you out of bed with intention, no matter how small. When you create a routine, you build resilience. And when you live with purpose, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, you remind yourself that your life still has value, still has movement, and still has more to give. This is how you start to feel alive again, not by waiting for something big to happen, but by making everyday moments sacred. You don't need to rush, you don't need to impress. You just have to keep showing up day after day with gentle care for your own existence. That's enough. That's survival, and that's dignity. Final thoughts: reaching your 80s is no small feat. It's a quiet triumph, a life lived through joy and loss, through noise and silence. But here's the truth many won't say out loud: the older you get, the more invisible you can start to feel. The world rushes past you. Friends pass on. Children grow up and become busy with their own lives. And somewhere in all of that, it's easy to feel left behind. But being alone doesn't mean you're without value. In fact, the people who have lived the longest have the most to offer, not just to others, but to themselves. Survival after 80 isn't just about getting through the day. It's about redefining what the day means. It's about turning solitude into sanctuary and quiet into clarity. You've spent a lifetime caring for others. Now it's time to care for yourself, not in grand, flashy ways, but in real, nourishing ways through connection, routine, purpose, movement, and presence. These are the quiet tools of resilience. These are the things that breathe life back into a home that's grown still. You're not too old to make new friends. You're not too old to laugh until your sides hurt. You're not too old to stretch, to learn, or to teach. You are not too old to begin again. Every day you wake up is a new chance. Don't let it slip by unnoticed. This video isn't about fear, it's about freedom. The freedom to stop apologizing for aging. The freedom to create your own rhythm. The freedom to find joy, even when no one else is watching, because your life still matters. Your voice still matters. And even if everyone else leaves, you're still here, and that means everything. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts matter to us, so don't hesitate to share. Reading your comments motivates and inspires us. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content for you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.